All right, let's get started. Welcome everyone to another one of the monthly UXPA international webinars that we hold about once a month, usually on Wednesdays at this time. Today we have a very special event, and one that's going to be utilizing some extra cutting edge technology. It's something that interests a lot of people right now, and that is using artificial intelligence tools or AI tools to help us with some of the aspects of the design process, specifically working with layouts and visual designs. And just a few notes before we get started is that because we are doing this we're going to be doing some things in real time that are going to be utilizing some tools that are that we rely on working, that are outside of our control. There could be some kind of unexpected technical difficulties that we might need to work through. So we may ask for your patience if something happens to come up, or hopefully not, we might need to even reschedule this webinar, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. I think it's unlikely, but just wanted to kind of let you know that this, what we're doing today is a little kind of unlike the things that we usually do, especially because we are doing this live. Unless you're watching the recording, in that case, there shouldn't be any problem. And because we've got a lot of ground to cover, I'm going to kind of pass it over to our guest right away. Our guest today is Danny C.T. Awan. And Danny, I'm just going to pass it over to you to introduce yourself, and I'll just sit back here in the background. Oh, and to let folks know, we also have the chat open today. So both Danny, you can feel free to ask people questions if you want people to respond. And if folks have any other questions that you want me to pass along to Danny, you can put it there, or you can even use the Q&A button, which is an option to you. But without further ado, let me pass it over to you, Danny.
Thank you, EJ. So yeah, welcome everyone. And just to get us started, I'm curious, we have a lot of people here in the chat. Can you drop where you're joining from, your location? I'm curious. NJ, CT, Michigan Railway, NCT. Very cool. Wow, then we got international people as well. Awesome. All right, I'm gonna get started. Thank you for the intro, EJ. And in this one, we're going to go over how to actually translate your Figma mockup to actual HTML code using Claude Desktop. So we're not using any IDE like Cursor or anything like that, because a lot of designers don't feel comfortable with those. And I want to show how to do this the simplest way possible that I discovered. And using Figma Desktop, which most of you, I'm guessing, already have. So a little bit about me. I've been doing this UX thing for a little while, for over 20 years. I coach startups, I teach boot camps, and now I mainly run a school. So the school is called Co-Create, to help UX professional integrate AI tools into the UX workflow, and also run the meetup group for UX people. We've got more than 8,000 members now. We do workshop like this all the time, like every week or every other week, and also do a lot of social things. I used to work for some of these companies, like Economist, Yahoo Finance. The biggest size of user group users that I serve was 80 million users per month for Yahoo Finance. And they're still number one right now, even though Yahoo is not doing great as a company, but Yahoo Finance is doing great. So I'm happy with that. And I've been coaching founders and US professionals for more than 9 years. With that, if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, this is my LinkedIn. I'm going to drop it in the chat. Education host. Okay, I think this is the way. If you can't see it, just let me know. I can drop it again later. With that, I'm gonna move on to the meat of this thing. So before we get to the actual demo, MCP, I'm sure a lot of you have heard of it. It stands for Model Context Protocol. It's a fancy way to say that it's giving these AI, the LLMs, the large language models, tools. Because I'm sure a lot of you have used ChatGPT, Claude, maybe Grok. Essentially, it's text-based, right? So you talk to it, you give it input in text, it gives you output in text. So it's just like essentially you're talking to the brain, and the brain can only respond that way. Now, MCP allows the brain to actually do things, to actually connect to different places, get data, and conduct things. I'm sure some of you have heard the terms agentic, and that's where this is going to be very useful for. And what we're going to see today, we're going to play around with, is something like that. If you want to follow along, by the way, get Claude Desktop and Figma Desktop. You will need the Pro plan, though. That's not me, it's on Figma, because we need to get to the dev tool. And then a normal browser to view the output, because we're going to output actual HTML. The reason why we're using the desktop version of both of these, although they have the browser version, is because we're using the MCP is going to be served by your own Figma. So Figma is going to serve is going to run a server, Model Context Protocol server, and then the Claude Desktop is going to be the client that use that. So essentially, Desktop is going to play the role of a web developer that translates your mockup into actual HTML file. Don't worry about this, don't read it. I'm just gonna do a quick demo first, and then I'm going to break it down step by step, okay? So this is the mockup that I'm going to be using, and I'm going to drop the file in the chat. So if you wanted to follow along, it's uploading now. It should be there now. Cool. Now, this is Figma, normal Figma file, design side of things, right? Should be, most of you, I'm sure, are familiar with this. We have the layer, the frame here, the artboard, and then the different more frames, right? Essentially, or groups, if you will, whatever term you want to use it. And then I have my my Claude Desktop here. So I just did a little experiment earlier. So with this, now I'm going to ask it. So for this, I have the different tools available. These are the MCPs. The two that we're going to utilize today are the file system and Figma dev mode. The file system allows Claude, actually not me, allow Claude Desktop to manipulate a certain part of my local file system. So in this case, I have this folder, and I want Claude to make a folder there. And then we're going to put the HTML file, which Claude will also create, in that folder. Okay, so I'm going to just ask it. So earlier I just tested this, asking if Claude could see the Figma thing, and it was using it, and it's successful. So far, so good. No technical issue yet. Hopefully nothing until the end. Anyhow, so I'm going to ask it to create a folder here. I'm just gonna get this folder location real quick, which is here.
Danny, while you are doing that, just want to let you know that it looks like you sent the Figma file to just the hosts and panelists. Could you try resending that in the chat and make sure it's addressed to everyone?
There is in the chat, the two drop-down only allows me to choose host and panelists and UXPA education.
Oh, all right. Well, then in that case, everyone keep an eye on the chat. I will download it and repost it. Go ahead and continue, Danny.
Sweet. So I got this is the location, right? So I'm just gonna tell Claude, because it's using the file system, create a folder called output. Let's say MCP output in this folder using the file system tool. Most of the time, we don't need to specify using the file system tool, but there are times when these LLMs are just being lazy. Actually, it's like, no, can't do it. I don't have access to that. Oh, there it is. See, done. But with this, being specific is good in a lot of cases. And then if you encounter something like that where it's just like, can't do it, and like, yes, you can. Try again. Yes, you can. Anyhow, so next, all right. Thank you, EJ. The next thing is I wanted to create the file, and I'm going to give it the hero part, right? This part. You can see that selected. So the way I do that is I'm gonna go here, go to copy paste as, copy link to selection. I could give it the entire page to create, but then normally the way I like to work with this is like slowly building it up so I could check the quality. Because LLMs can still hallucinate, even though it's trying, this is supposedly following all the specs. Sometimes it would be like, no, I know better. Anyway, that's why I do it like from top to bottom, one section at a time. Now, create an HTML landing page based on this. That will be the first section of the page. Use Figma Dev Tool. Now open this up. Let me show you if it's doing it. We're gonna see the file showing up there. So it's thinking, getting screenshot. And by the way, I'm using the extended thinking because when you're doing code or things like that, that requires a lot more precision. You want it to just not go too fast. So extended thinking is great for this. And also it can work on the output longer than if you didn't have that on. So it's writing the file now, supposedly. We'll see. Oh, there it is. So what we want to see here, let's see if it does it, is this first bit only, right? The header 2. Let's see if that's what it's giving us. Oh, there it is. And the cool thing is that this is actually responsive also. I mean, this I could do better. I mean, I'm sure that we could come up with better idea with like hamburger or something. We can try to change that later. But it's pretty cool how it just did that within, you see, within seconds. Now, so we're gonna build it up more later, but now I'm going to just walk you through the setup. To turn on the MCP, I mentioned that the MCP is here under this tool thingy, add connectors. There are two kinds. One is to connect to the web entities, if you will, like Asana, Jira, if you want to do that, all kinds of things. So to connect out of your computer, think about it that way on the web. And you can see there's a lot for payment, for all kinds of things. The ones that we're using is under the desktop extension. So this is like within your own computer, right? The two that we're using are the file system, this one, and the Figma dev mode. So those are the two things that we're using. The file system, when you turn it on, it would require you to specify which folder that you want to give it access to. By default, I think it's but downloads or desktop, one of those, or maybe blank, I'm not sure. But one way to do that, if you're not sure, if you go to, let's say, I'm just gonna show you my downloads. If you're on a Mac, this is the way to do it. If this is the downloads, you can just right click on one of these, get info, and then you grab this where, right? And then you drop it in there. That's the URL. The easy way to get the folder path. For the Figma dev mode, I think is pretty straightforward. You just turn on everything so it's essentially it has a bunch of tools under that. So under the hood is basically connecting to a bunch of APIs, but this is making it easy. MCP makes it easy for the LLM, particularly to actually work with a bunch of APIs by connecting once, essentially. So I'm going to show you what that looks like here under Figma dev mode. If you go in here, you see these are the different tools. You don't have to turn on everything, but for what we're doing, most of the time, there's no need to actually disable these because this is also all happening locally, right? I'm not working with anything on the web right now. So it's from Figma local to my Claude also local. And this is just like, as you can see, the file is local and it's here. So it's all just local. So that's why security is not an issue. That's why I don't care about that. Just turn it on. So I know that it's going to work. Now on the Figma side, you need to switch over to the dev mode, which is from here, view, go to switch to dev mode right here. And then on the right side here, you need to turn on the MCP server. If you can see here, it says enabled. If you haven't enabled it, there's a button supposedly to enable it. And if you had to choose which client, I would choose others. In the rehearsal, EJ tried choosing, I think, what was it, Cloud Desktop? I'm not Cloud Code, and he got confused because this is Cloud Desktop. I think they have distinction. So just choose others. You turn it on, and it should work. Now, once you've done that, after all these things are on, like what I showed you earlier, I'm going to show you again. I'm going to continue building this thing. Basically, right-click on the frame, and then copy link to selection. Now, sometimes I'm going to go back to the design mode. Sometimes when it's not on the dev mode, like this, when you right click, you see a lot more option in which that you go to copy and paste as. Copy, what you're looking for is this one, copy link to selection, right? So the dev mode, the point of the dev mode really is just to show that, to make sure that you have your MCP servers on. There's like this, for some of you who care, there's the estimated tokens for that this will require, basically the amount of energy essentially that would need the brain power to actually make it happen. A lot of information. But anyhow, so I'm gonna get the second bit here, right click, copy link to selection. And then in my Claude Desktop, again, extended thinking is on. To turn it on, if you don't have it on, is here, extended thinking. I'm going to see, can you see this component? So this is a good sign that the Figma dev tool is working. Yes, I can see it, and then it's describing it, white background, heading, beautiful framework. Let's see, right? So now I know, oh, it's connected. So that's one quick way to test it, if the connection is there. So then it's asking, would you like me to add this section to HTML grid? And just say yes. And it's working, it's writing the file. You can extend it to see what it's doing. Sometimes it's useful to watch the thinking process so that you could interject if it's going in the wrong direction and just stop it by doing this. Hmm. Somebody asked earlier. I think I saw somebody ask about
Yeah,
the
I
URL.
did see a question. It looks like it disappeared from the chat. Maybe they're using the Q&A tool, which would be fine, but uh, someone had asked with the reference to figma.com, does that mean that this is you like going out on the internet and pulling or processing some data? Or does this happen locally?
That's actually a good question. I've never paid attention to that. I think possibly because it says figma.com for the URL, the information here of the mockup, the specs, could be actually sync up with the web version. I haven't tried it using this without the internet, so that's something to try. So, but because the URL says figma.com, I assume that's how it works.
Danny, would you mind if I added a few more questions right now?
Go for it.
Sure. Esther posted to the chat saying that their Claude said it cannot create folders on my computer. Is there a step that they missed?
Most likely it's when you go here, I'm gonna go back there, it's the file system configuration. Most likely, so I'm gonna go to manage. Wait, where did it go? Okay, here we go. Where is my file system? Browser desktop, here we go. Configure. So either you don't have the tools turned on, or there is the configuration for which directory you give it access to. So that's what it is normally. So you could just try to disconnect and reconnect again to see if it's doing that.
And am I correct that alternatively, as a user, you could simply create the folder manually through your, whatever means you do it through, like, for example, your file explorer or your Finder, and then that would solve that problem?
The directory creation, yes. However, Claude Desktop will still need to be able to write on your machine, on your local desktop, right? So that way, for that reason, we still need to designate an area that it can actually mess around with, essentially. We still need that file system to be working.
Great. Well, are some more questions in the queue, but why don't you go ahead and proceed, and I'll find a good time to interject with them.
Okay, so I want to point out a couple things here. So here, it's very close, right? It's very close in terms of the way it looks, but for the designers, I'm sure some of you noticed the spacing is not exactly right. You see, this is like way more spacing. This is way more spacing than this. So things like that we need to pay attention to. And also here, I feel like proportionally, this is more spacing below your email versus this. So something like that, sometimes the AI could get sloppy, something to look out for. And then I'm gonna just continue for now. That said, the fastest way the best workflow that I've found is really just like get it done first and then you tweak it. Sometimes this is where we need to actually use an IDE like Cursor or one of those to actually tweak the details. Claude Code can do it, but it's not really meant for that, right? Claude Desktop or Claude Code can also do it, obviously. With that, I'm gonna go back and add more. I'm gonna go back to where was it? Chat. I'm gonna continue adding the next one, the content 26. Just gonna say, add this section now. Yeah, looking at this probably goes to the internet from there. That's probably how they make it work. Okay, let's check. There it is. Interesting. Again, the proportion is not exactly right. In fact, it looks off. But the layout, overall layout is there, so we can actually later on ask it to inspect and fix it up. Okay, now I'm gonna add the footer. Again, going here, copy link. Now add this section.
Danny, while we're waiting, another question for you.
Okay.
Are there some sort of advantages to using this system as opposed to Figma sites or anything else? Like, why are you choosing to do it this way?
Figma sites I haven't tried, honestly. So I don't know what I assume that it's a site maker. I don't, does it like, who asked that? Can you explain what Figma sites does?
That
Because I know
was
some
Anne. And unfortunately, you're not able to turn your microphone on and speak. But if you could put it in the chat, I will relay that your answer. It looks like Sid wrote and said that Figma Makes allows you to publish on Figma sites.
So Figma site is just the hosting for stuff from Figma Make. Is that what it is? If so, then I can give you the answer because I've been playing around with Figma Make because I haven't touched Figma. Oh, okay. So it's like Webflow.
Yeah.
Got it.
For
So
those of you who didn't see the chat, Sid added that Figma Sites is more like Webflow or Frame.io.
yeah, so it's more like a
Maybe
builder.
Framer.
Yeah, it's like a builder, right? So the workflow here is very specific to, let's say that you have the mockup done in Figma like this, completely done, and then most likely you created this using design system that's already like all connected. And then now the task at hand is to turn this into a pixel perfect web version, I guess HTML version, right? So it's just translating this one-to-one, like what would a web developer do essentially. That's the workflow. If you're still ideating, this is not the workflow for that. So the workflow for that would be just go straight to Figma potential and bring it back here and then back and forth. And then by then you don't even need to go through this whole process.
So just to summarize that, or maybe say it a slightly different way, that the other tool, like working directly in Figma, is good for your prototyping, your wireframing, your rough drafting. But this is now when you're ready to hand something off to a developer to work with, you might want to actually kind of create something that's more pixel perfect. Is that a way to, is that another way to say it?
That's perfect. Because what this does is this actually go like what a developer would do. It goes here and inspect. That's why we need the dev mode. Then the inspect, it would inspect the font size, the font color, all these things, right? And translate it to this. That's why it could be more accurate. I don't know why the spacing is not, but that's the idea. While ideating and all that, you don't need those things. Now, with that said, now Figma has that capability to publish your design library and use it in Figma Make. But even with that, though, it's not going to be pixel perfect, right? Again, it's more for ideating, because by then when you're prototyping, ideating, you don't care about pixel perfect. You shouldn't, because it's prototype. That said, somebody asked, said, why not use Cloud Code directly to build the local instance of a React app? Well, most people don't feel comfortable doing that. If you can, sure, that probably would be more accurate. But I'm trying to show the easiest way for non-technical people, the UX designers who are more used to both Cloud Desktop and something, the Figma interface, as opposed to going into the terminal, because Cloud Code requires the CLI, right? Command line interface requires the terminal access.
Yeah, and let me even, for those of us who are even less technically inclined, and everything you said went over your head. Here's another here's another way to put it, is that so Claude is basically kind of a collection, an AI tool, or it's made by a company called Anthropic, and they have different means of using Claude. They have your desktop version, which Danny is using today. And then they have another one called Claude Code, which developers might use, software engineers, that work directly in the tool that you use to build your code. And so you can have a conversation with Claude in the development environment, or IDE, as they might call it, and it can actually write the code for you directly. So that's kind of one of the distinctions between Claude Desktop and Claude Code. And if you don't even understand what I said, I'm sure it's fine. But this is a good kind of starting place for most people. I hope that sounds right to you, Danny.
Yep, that's great. I'm just, another follow-up. I haven't tried this yet, but can we have Cloud Code use a local storybook instance or GitHub repo, which I can make sure all components are following outline design patterns? That sounds fancy, but I haven't tried that. Normally, my competency ends with like creating something like this. When I don't mess with like the GitHub repo and stuff, because I'm scared, because I'm not a developer. I pretend to be sometimes. That's why I don't. I mean, I think we're going there. I've used Cursor, and Cursor can actually do a lot of these things for us. I don't know what Storybook instance is, but like I assume it's similar to GitHub repo, essentially a version for version control, right, of your code. And just to show you guys, I'll show real quick my cursor so that you can get a sense. For those of you who are not familiar, so this is like, I'm just using something for the presentation deck, right? I was updating with cursor. It will be fun. And this is the files in the folder and then the thing, and I could just chat with it and say, hey, look at what's on slide 3. So it understands it, and then it's reading it. Underneath it is also using Claude Sonnet. And it's looking at that. So this is equivalent to, where was that? To this, slide 3, MCP tools for designer, blah, 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 blah. So with this, you could ask it to have, you can, if you had like your local GitHub repo, and then you can like get it to deploy and all that kind of fancy stuff. But that's beyond the scope of this. So, any other questions?
Yes, we had a few come in here. Let's see. How do you use Cursor with this Maybe this is what you were just answering. I'm not sure. Was that Cursor you were showing on your screen a moment ago? Okay.
So you could have MCP on its cursor, and this is cursor, right? But to edit, it's not that easy. Like I'll show it to you. So you need to mess with this, with the JSON file, right?
Yeah, and before you get too deep, Danny, would you please define cursor for those of us who have never heard of
Yes.
this before?
Yeah. So Cursor is the IDE, the development environment, the tool essentially for coding, right? And it's very smart where it's obviously it has AI. So that's what Cursor is in a nutshell. So it's the tool focused on building things for coding.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
And go ahead and continue if you had more to say about that.
Yeah, so there are things that it can, like for example, I have the back to the MCP, it has the MCP here too, the tools, right? Browser automation, so it could use browser and go somewhere. And I connected MCP Docker because that's actually the easier way to connect MCP for Cursor rather than messing around with the JSON file. So with the Docker, this is going pretty deep. So let's stop me, EJ.
If this is over anyone's head, just it's okay. You don't need to know this right now. This
Yes.
is if you're adventurous or
Yeah.
you're looking for the technical, it's like technical alternatives.
Yeah, because the reason why I went pretty deep on this is because for my course, I wanted to make it designer friendly. This is why this is for us, right? So here on Docker, so this is nothing. This Docker is essentially a container where you can use a platform, I guess, to install things and maintain it, like contain it within your system easily. Um, Anyhow, with that, it also has MCP toolkit. You can turn on a lot of this, like with Notion, Perplexity, Stripe, whatever. And then even more so with here, there's like a lot more available. And then is to turn it on to connect it with your client, which is in this case, Cursor. You can just turn it on here, connect it. So instead of messing around with the JSON file, you can do it this way. And also, there are other clients available. For example, Claude Desktop here. I could just connect it and it automatically appears there. I didn't choose to do that because I wanted to be able to manage that on Cloud Desktop. There's an easy way to do it on Cloud Desktop anyways. But with Cursor, this could be handy for some of you.
Okay, let's maybe leave that for now. And but this this gives me an idea that there is plenty of things here to explore. This is a very large topic. Maybe we should have some follow-up sessions on this with you, Danny, or some other experts. Um, so if people are interested in that, go ahead and add that to the chat. So an attendee had also asked about, do Cursor and Claude both push changes to the same HTML files on your computer?
They could.
They could. Okay. All right. So I suppose it depends on how it's configured.
Yeah.
I,
Well, one thing on that, Cursor is better at that. It would ask you if there's a conflict of changes, it would notify you. There's a conflict of somebody, like there's another tool editing the same file right now, and this is not the latest version. Which one do you want to choose? Claude, because it's Claude Desktop, because it's not created for that, then it doesn't have that awareness, if you will. So Claude Desktop would just look at the file, whatever is the latest there, it's assumed that that's the latest thing. So for example, the collision could happen, let's say you have the file open on Cursor, like what I had shown you guys, and then you use Claude Desktop to make changes. So the Cursor version that you're seeing is not the latest. Cursor would know and alert you to that. While
okay.
Claude wouldn't.
Got it. Got it. Okay. A question that a few people have asked is does ChatGPT or other LLM tools, like I should say other, maybe I just be more simple, like other chat tools. For example, if a company has some sort of a co-pilot, some sort of private co-pilot or something that's used in their organization, does this have the same capability? Can you use those as well instead of Claude Desktop?
They're not. So that's where actually that's where it gets really interesting for UX people like ourselves. A lot of these things use the same brain, but the wrapper becomes the product, not the algorithm, right? So the short answer is no. they have different things that they make available in a different way. Right? For example, with ChatGPT, also, I'm just going to open it real quick for the conversation. They have the tools. Where is it? They have this section for tools. I remember seeing it. Is it under settings, maybe? Or language to they have it somewhere here. But it's not as integrated as this. And also, and I'm using Comet, which is Perplexity's version of browser with AI. It also has capability to do tools. Like for example, let's just go here. So you can create a task and it just runs, right? This also has connectors, which is essentially MCP to connect to Gmail, so it can write an email for you, reply to the email for you, all these kind of things. But that's what I'm saying earlier. It depends on the way we design it, what we abstract, and what we actually surface. Now, this also becomes interesting when you look at the different tools. Like, for example, if you look at, I'm going to bring up cursor again. This is probably going to look very similar to something like, I don't know, like Bold or V0, other tools, Replit. And then there's a version of that that are also similar to Figma Make, to Lovable. And underneath them all is Claude Sonnet 4.5. It's the same brain. So the design decision to surface or to hide things is the product now.
Is that what you would call an agent?
So the way I describe an agent, there's like a lot of debate still, I think. The way I define it is that if I could tell it to do something and I could go make coffee and come back, it's done, it's an agent.
Well, that's the kind of agent I want.
That's what it is. Like, for example, with this is Perplexity Comet, this agentic browser. So the other day, I just asked it to cancel a subscription, and it did.
So it does something for you. It actually will
something.
take an action for you. Got it.
Performs action, exactly. So
Okay.
it's like Q&A tool, essentially, right? That's why we need to give it the MCP, the tools, to allow it to perform actions on our behalf. We give it agency. That's why it's an agent.
Nice. Nice. Okay, that's a good description. We have a number of other questions. Is this a good time to do that, Danny, or should we pause on the questions and
let
you
me
continue
just
with your presentation?
Yeah, let me just recap real quick, right? For people who are trying to follow along. And maybe if you're having problem, watch the recording, but essentially these are the steps. That's why I have it here. So on the Figma side, open the design file, obviously, switch to dev mode. I'm gonna just like walk you through again real quick. So dev mode is here under view, switch to design. And if you're in the design, then this shows that switch to dev mode. That's what that is. And then from the dev mode, you want to enable the MCP server, which is this, right? So that's on the Figma side. On the Claude, the setup is to configure the connectors. The two connectors that we need here are file system and Figma, right? So I'm going to pull them up from this thing, the settings looking thing. You go to add connectors, desktop extension, file system, Figma dev mode. Okay, test the MCP by getting the location, by going back to Figma, right click, copy link to selection, and then give it to Claude Desktop and ask if it can see it. And then you can start building the component from there. Is it?
Thank you for recapping that. Shall I get back to the questions?
Yep.
Okay. First of all, for those of you who didn't see in the chat, I'm going to repost it. Today's webinar is being recorded. I think Danny alluded to that. So you can go back and watch this later and kind of study it and pause it and practice these sorts of things. And I'm going to repost it right now. So, because that's a popular question that keeps popping up. So I'm just going to, look at your chat for links. It's on our website at the webinar library, and it will be on our YouTube channel in about a week's time. So look for it there. And let's see, what else do we got? We got a few things that have been lining up. So Sarah said that they've noticed that Figma Make sometimes generates inaccurate HTML tags. For example, using the div tag instead of the button tag. Does Claude produce more semantically accurate HTML output?
I believe so, but we can take a look.
Okay, okay,
I believe so. That's
a
what I
fair
remember.
answer. Let's see.
Yeah, it's definitely way cleaner, as you can see here in the inspect. Figma, I know that Figma Make was, I don't know, I think it's been getting better. They just tried to get something out and it was a mess.
Right.
Also, in terms of editing, some of these tools, Figma Make and some, I think Lovable also does this. They're not very good at maintaining consistency. What I mean by that is that, for example, this looks good, right? And then you just wanted to add spacing between this. It would add the spacing, but then it would change the text or something like that. Something stupid like that. You're like, they tend to do that. And you, in a lot of cases, you may need to add some kind of system prompt to say that don't change anything except what the user asked you to change.
So sometimes you need to tell it that explicitly, like
You need to tell it that.
do this, don't do anything else.
Yeah, but Claude has been very good at this actually, especially when it's using this particular workflow with the tool. It knows that what it's supposed to do is just translating inspecting the specs and translating that to code. That's it.
Right. It's my impression, Danny, that this area of I guess I'd say these techniques and tools are rapidly evolving and changing. So what we're seeing today could be different in 6 months or a year, right? That you might find that Claude is not performing as well as one of these other tools that we've been talking about. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, it's crazy for my course. So I've done 3 cohort every single time before I teach a lesson. So it's like 6-week course with like weekly meetup. Every single time I have to change about 30 to 40% of the content.
Wow. Okay.
That's how fast this is going. This is why education is going to change rapidly. So like webinar or workshop like this, I think would be the main way people stay up to date, because the curriculum of, let's say, a university or even a boot camp, how often do you get updated, right? These things changes. Like in my course, I cover like 15 to 20 tools, and like they change rapidly. Every single one, I have to like update new one. And also even with this, right? When I first taught this, the whole MCP, I had to teach my students how to do it the old way with like opening of the JSON file. And this is what we do, right? And a permission from your computer. Now there's the connector. And now there's a Docker connector, right? So it does change super fast. So that's why don't get married to the tool. Go deeper into the understanding of the workflow and even better, the process, because at the end of the day, the tools will be easy to swap in and out anyways.
Right. So be thinking of, I think what I hear you saying is be thinking about core principles.
Correct.
Like what's exactly kind of happening, or what are the different elements that are taking place, and you will probably discover some standard patterns that will exist with future tools that you can always apply.
Yep. And the other thing that's interesting is that these things are super good at generating, obviously, generative AI, right? But for the longest time, generating something is the hardest thing. Okay, if you think about like the double diamond, let's just take one with a diamond, which is the second diamond. We normally represent that visually like this, equally, like this left and the right side equals. But actually, in the traditional way, it's very long because it takes a long time to build something, to create something. And then we only have like maybe few options because it takes a long time to produce the options. And then the conversion become like really fast, right? Really fast because we only have few options. Now it's flipped. It's really fast and it's very, very big. But then the convergence needs to be longer, or else you're gonna get slop crap.
Hmm. Okay. By the way, just a time check here, Danny. We have a little around 8 minutes left, so maybe start transitioning to kind of closing things up. But in the meantime, I'll pass along some additional questions.
Okay.
So Suzanne wanted to know, how carefully did you clean up your components before going to dev mode? Is there a standard process?
There's no actual standard process other than the best practices that we use, right? The auto layout and those things. A lot of times Claude could be smart enough to figure it out, but I would apply the same thing that we do. The only thing that doesn't matter is really the naming convention here. It doesn't matter as much because it's not human reading it, but it's still a good habit for us as the designer, because by the time we get here, normally this has gone through multiple iterations, different design reviews, right? So there should be humans involved reading this file along the way to get it to this final approved and ready to develop. So it should be the same process should be applied there. And sorry, Jane, just wanna add something here since I just asked Claude to review the spacing, right? So I just ask it, please review the spacing, make sure it's accurate. Here's the URL of the page mockup. I just give it the overall one. So it fixed some of them, like for example here, but then here is broken. I'm gonna show you side by side. So now the beautiful framework, there's no spacing above it, even though this one was fixed. And then look at this. It needs to be cropped. So these are the things that the spacing is right though. Looks like bit above this is correct, but the image needs to be cropped, right? So things like that.
Is there any danger, Danny, if you know a little bit of HTML and everything, to just go in and fix these things manually in the HTML file?
That's actually the workflow. So you get this to 80, 90%. And then if you keep like prompting to get it fixed, you're gonna drive yourself crazy because this thing is not the smartest in that sense.
Right, right. Is it so? Some of us might be familiar with the concept of tokens, or the idea that using these tools might cost money. Either you're using a subscription that has limits, or you might be paying for sort of by usage, like as you use it. Is this kind of thing expensive from a token point of view to say, generate this page? No, actually now make this little change. Is that an expensive process?
The short answer is yes, but the way I see it is not the token that I mean, that is true, the token that is costing me actual money that the companies are charging me, the tool company are charging me. It can get expensive because obviously more iteration, it's not getting it. Oh, fix this. No, not that. This it's costing money. But the more expensive tokens, if you will, is the token in our brain. Because token is essentially just it's a unit of information, right? Like let us have two tokens, let and us. And then all these things that added up and they become these like thousands of tokens, bits of information. While the thing is doing the agent is working for us, we also have to spend tokens in our own mind, right? In our brain. That gets expensive, way more expensive, because the frustration and everything's like, I'll just do it myself.
Right. So it might be a good use of your money. It's like you're basically offloading some of your very valuable time and energy to the tool. One of the reasons I'm asking is because as a relatively new user to Claude Desktop, I am finding that I'm just suddenly told, oh, you're out of time for the next 8 or 12 hours, can't use it anymore, or you've used up your time for the week.
Yep.
And that's one reason I was asking about kind of expense. Like, do people need to be careful about maybe using up a finite number of resources so they're not just stuck? So I think you've answered the question generally, is that, yeah, it does cost something significant.
Yeah, the way I like to think about this, EJ, is like when I work with freelancers, right? Sometimes I just like, okay, do this, do that. But at some point, if let's say it's just a quick thing, I would rather open the Figma file and do it myself because it's more expensive to get them to do it for me. It's the
Yep,
same thing.
yep, and right. Okay, so maybe this will be the last question. Syed asked, can we extend this workflow, being Figma designs, to a web-based version aligned with a digital version for a mobile app? So I think what Syed might be pointing out is that you're giving an example of a web page that exists on for sort of a desktop environment. And how does it work if you want to do mobile? Like, is that kind of built in? Like, if you switch to mobile and looked at this, would it be mobily? That's not even a word, is it? Would it be responsive in the mobile version, or is that you got to do that separately?
Well, if mobile in terms of responsiveness, you get that for free already. But if you're actually designing for mobile apps, like native apps, that depends on how you're gonna use this artifact that's produced by this. So with these things, just like anything that we do in UX, you gotta ask the question, who's gonna use this? How are they gonna use it? If you're just planning to use this for example, even though it's native app, but you're gonna use it for user testing and you can fake it using as a web app, right? In this case, then this would work. And even if you can potentially ask it to develop things using other languages other than HTML, like let's say in Python or other things, it can do it. But then you would need to obviously test it in a different way. You got to compile it and all these things.
Right. All right, Danny. Well, I think we are at time. I want to thank everyone who has joined us today. First of all, just for your general participation. UXPA International does these webinars about once a month. Sometimes we will skip a month because we might have some sort of major event, which we did last month for the event called UX Palooza. And I want to also thank everyone for actively using the chat. For those of you who have also been answering other people's questions, it's been really nice and lively. And Danny, I think you are kind of predicting my next question. How can people stay in touch with you and learn more about what you do?
Yeah, I'm gonna drop this in the chat, but you will need to pass it along to them, EJ, because I'm only sending to hosts and panelists. So I just dropped the links to the meetup.com. So especially if you're in New York, New Jersey, please come hang out with us. We do happy hour every Thursday. We pretend like we talk UX, but we just want to get together and hang out and drink cheap Guinness. And also on Wednesday tonight, we have Learn and Share UX and AI, where we basically come together, share what we learned this week. And there's my LinkedIn to if you have any further question or want to say hi.
Great. Oh, and one of our board members just chimed in on the chat and to me and wanted me to remind everyone that World Usability Day is coming up, and that's something that is organized by UXPA International. You can find out more information about that, I believe, on uxpa.org online. And we are going to have a free virtual networking event for members on that day. And Rajesh, I don't know if you can quickly kind of add the date of that event to the chat, and I can pass that along. Yeah, Rajesh says it's on November 13th. So November 13th, World Usability Day. Great. And there might even be some things going on locally in various chapters or other sorts of things. You could probably even organize your own sort of related event. Okay, with that, Danny's slideshows, you can get in touch with him on LinkedIn, which I put in the chat. Also at Danny at cocreate.consulting. And also there's a UX support group meetup that he has. Any final word, Danny, before we end it?
Just wanted to say thank you for being an awesome host, DJ.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah. Well, UXP International is delighted to have you, and I hope we can do this again sometime.
I would like that.
Great. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to close the webinar now.
Thank you.
Have a good day.